Aloha everyone. We're now coming up on 2.5 years since the big fire in Lahaina town, and it's been more than 4 months since I've done a full driving tour of the entire town. Since then, there's been a few new roads that have opened up, in particular around the Banyan tree and by the harbor, and there's been a ton of progress in the residential rebuilding. So I'm really excited to show you around so you can see with your own eyes what the progress looks like from the ground. Let's go take a look. We're going to start on the far south end of Lahaina town and basically follow the same path that I use for my drone tours. Right now, we're on the lower Honoapiilani Highway heading north. From here, we're going to turn left onto Front Street, and straight ahead, we already see our first house being built. Coming up on the left-hand side of the screen is the entrance into the Puamana community. From here, we're going to follow Front Street as far as we can into Lahaina town. Now we're going to cover a lot of ground in this tour by circling through several neighborhoods. I have provided timestamps in the description below in case you want to jump to any of the areas that are of the most interest to you. That being said, I think the whole video is worth watching so you can get the full scope of our progress. Now, we will see more progress in the residential rebuild later in the video when we go through the Shark Pit, Wahikuli, and Lahainaluna neighborhoods. But according to the Maui Recovery's website, as of February 3rd, 2026, 550 building permits have officially been issued in Lahaina. Of that, 523 are residential, and 116 homes have officially been rebuilt, which means that the permit has been completed and the home has passed final inspection and is ready for habitation. As the town rebuilds, Lahaina residents recently received some good news. FEMA's individual and household programs have now been extended through February 28, 2027. This program provides temporary housing and financial assistance to Maui wildfire survivors. Coming up on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see we're approaching a mid-rise building. That building is Lahaina Shores condominium complex. Now, Lahaina Shores reopened to occupancy for the first time after the fire on July 1st. If you're curious to know more about Lahaina Shores, check out the video I released right after they opened to see what the property looks like now. Just past Lahaina Shores on the left-hand side is where the shops at 505 Front Street were located prior to the fire. We're now coming up on a part of Front Street that was just recently reopened. We're going to drive all the way around the Banyan tree, and we will pass right next to Lahaina Harbor. The iconic Lahaina banyan tree is now coming into sight on the left-hand side. Even though it was severely charred in the 2023 fires, it is still standing and showing excellent signs of life more than 2.5 years later. Arborists and local groups have been monitoring and caring for it as part of our recovery efforts. And while parts of the tree were badly damaged, new growth and recovery has been observed under careful irrigation and treatment. Looking to the right here, we can see where the Wharf Cinema Center was prior to the fire. As we turn left onto Hotel Street, we're now driving past where the Pioneer Inn was located prior to the fire. And of course, straight ahead is the Lahaina Harbor. The harbor reopened with limited capacity late in 2025. Allowing for a handful of commercial boat operators to resume tours and departures directly from Lahaina for the first time since the fires. We're now driving past the old Lahaina courthouse on the left-hand side. Just past the courthouse, you see a stack of coral blocks. Those are a reconstructed section of the historic Lahaina Fort that was built in 1832. We're now driving past where the King Kamehameha Elementary School was located prior to the fire on the right-hand side. Okay, from here we're going to jump over to the Shark Pit residential neighborhood before we continue to drive all the way through town. We just turned on to Waine'e Street, and you will see that there's some really good progress in the residential rebuild here in the Shark Pit neighborhood. Now, this area was actually slow to get started with the rebuild because of an extra layer of permitting called the Special Management Area Permit. That SMA permit was required for properties that are closer to the ocean, like in the Shark Pit neighborhood. That is until February of 2025, when the mayor exempted hundreds of Lahaina properties as part of an emergency action that helped to speed up our rebuild. By the way, don't forget to hit the like button if you appreciate these updates, and do me a favor and check to see if you're subscribed to the channel. I just looked at my video analytics and I'm surprised to see that 93.3% of the people that watch my Lahaina videos still have not subscribed. Subscribing really is one of the best ways to support the channel. And if you really want to support the work that I do on these videos, consider joining as a member as well. I'll share a link to the membership options in the description below. Right now we're driving on Elakahi Street, and as we round the corner here, we're going to head back towards Waine'e Street. Okay, we're going to turn left back onto Waine'e Street, and once again, we're going to continue our path heading north. From here, you can see the Lahaina Baptist Church is straight ahead on the right-hand side of the street. On the left-hand side of the screen is where one of Lahaina's Buddhist missions was located prior to the fire. Unfortunately, several historic buildings at the mission did burn down, including the main temple. However, according to their website, recovery and rebuilding efforts are underway. We're now coming up on the intersection of Waine'e Street and Prison Street. On the left-hand side of the intersection is where the old prison museum was. As you can see, the wall surrounding the building is still standing. That wall is actually made out of coral block, and it was built all the way back in the year 1852. On the right-hand side of the screen, we're coming up on the Nalu condominium complex, which was a very popular development that allowed vacation rentals. Unfortunately, we did lose Nalu to the fire as well. Coming up on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see the steeple for the Maria Lanakila Catholic Church. We're now coming up on the intersection of Waine'e Street and Dickinson Street. On the right-hand side of the street here is where the Opukea Condos were located prior to the fire. Next, we're coming up on the intersection at Lahainaluna Road. Off in the distance on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see the building where the Foodland grocery store was. Coming up on the right-hand side is where the Lahaina Square shopping center was. The building that's still standing on the left is where the McDonald's building was located. We're now coming up on the intersection at Waine'e Street, and on the right-hand side, just across the intersection, is where the First Hawaiian Bank was located prior to the fire. As we continue to drive down Waine'e Street, the left-hand side is where the outlets of Maui were located prior to the fire, and on the right-hand side is where the Lahaina Clinic was. Next is the intersection at Baker Street, and straight ahead you can see where the Lahaina Surf affordable housing was. We're going to take a left here onto Baker Street and head back towards Front Street. On the right is where the Channel House condominiums were, and on the left is where you're going to see what remains of the Lahaina United Methodist Church. Okay, we're back to Front Street, so we're going to take a right and we're going to continue our path heading north. Coming up on the right is where the Lahaina residential condominium complex was. And on the left side, we're passing the area where the first oceanfront home to receive its approved building permits is located. Now on the right is where the Front Street apartments were. We're coming up on the intersection at Front Street and Cannery Street, and we're going to drive right past my old neighborhood, Kahoma Village. I actually just got done spending the last couple of weeks fixing up my house to get ready for another FEMA tenant after the first ones moved out. By the way, that FEMA direct lease program was originally only approved for 18 months after the fire. Then it was extended through February 2026 at the request of the state of Hawaii, and most recently the state requested and FEMA approved an additional year, giving survivors that type of support through early 2027. Now we're coming up on the bridge that crosses the Kahoma Stream. This is the area that mostly survived the fire. On the right-hand side is the Cannery Mall. On the left-hand side is the old Lahaina Luau. And we're coming up on a stretch of some really great restaurants that are completely open, like Aloha Mixed Plate, Star Noodle, Honu, Mala Tavern, and the new Coco Deck Lahaina. Don't forget to stop in and support all the local businesses if you're in the area. Okay, now we're back into the residential portion on the north side of Front Street. As you can see, there are a few homes that are being built here, but this really is one of the areas that has the least amount of progress. However, on the left-hand side, you see the Lahaina Roads condominium complex, and that building has gone through a pretty extensive rejuvenation after the fire and is now reopened to occupancy. I always seem to get a few comments from people who are disappointed if I don't point out the landmarks that are important to them. I do my best to cover everything as we drive, but if there's certain areas that I am missing that you would like me to drive by and point out in future videos, feel free to let me know in the comment section. Okay, we're now coming up on the far north end of Front Street where it intersects with the Honoapiilani Hwy. You can actually see Ka'anapali off in the distance. From here, we're going to cross the highway and take a quick tour of the Wahikuli neighborhood. I'm going to jump ahead a little ways to show you an area that has a lot of homes that are currently under construction. As you can see, we are seeing a lot of progress in this area. But one thing that I think will help to speed up the progress in both the residential and commercial rebuilding is when we start to see fire survivors receiving payment from the Lahaina wildfire lawsuit. 2.5 years after the Lahaina fire, people are still waiting for payments from a $4 billion settlement from Hawaii Electric, the state of Hawaii, Maui County, and the large landowners that surround Lahaina. Those payments were originally scheduled to start going out in mid-2025. However, right now, the settlement is stuck in the Hawaii Supreme Court. Okay, we're now coming up on the far south end of the Wahikuli neighborhood, and we're going to turn back towards the Honoapiilani Highway. Straight ahead, you can see the Cannery Mall on the other side of the highway. We're going to turn left onto the highway and drive through town heading south this time, so you can see what the middle of town looks like before we explore the Lahainaluna Neighborhood. We're now coming up on the intersection where the Lahaina bypass meets the highway. On the right-hand side, we're passing Kahoma Village neighborhood again, and on the left-hand side, you can see the Opukea at Lahaina condo complex. As we drive by, you'll see that they are making really good progress rebuilding the structures at Opukea that were lost in the fire. On the left-hand side, we're about to pass the area that held the Sugarcane Train food truck park, and off in the distance you can see the iconic Pioneer Mill smokestack. We just passed the intersection at Waine'e Street and are now coming up on the Lahainaluna intersection. From here, we're going to turn left onto Lahainaluna Road. We're going to head up the hillside into the Lahainaluna neighborhood, all the way to the top of the burn zone, before circling back and coming back down the hill. Notice the old wooden poles that are holding the overhead power lines in this area. It was poorly maintained power lines that were knocked down by strong winds that was another major factor that caused the huge fire. In fact, it was a downed power line in this neighborhood that created the initial spark that started the fire. Well, we recently received some really good news in that regard, as it was announced that Hawaii Electric does plan to bury power lines in this area. About 2.5 miles of power lines along Lahainaluna Road will be placed underground. And that project can also be done in conjunction with Maui County's plan to widen the road as well. For point of reference, we're now driving along Waine'e Street near the very top of the burn zone. Okay, we're now going to turn into the Kahoma Homes neighborhood and head down the hill along Waine'e Street. This is another area that has a really high concentration of homes that are under construction, and it even looks like several homes have been fully completed. This was one of the newer neighborhoods in Lahaina, so I imagine the permitting process for these homeowners was a little easier than those that have to rebuild homes that were built decades ago. On the far right-hand side, you'll see a blue building. That's where the Emerald Plaza commercial area is. Okay, straight ahead, we're coming back up on the Opukea at Lahaina condo complex. And as we round the corner here, you're going to see some more townhome buildings that are under construction. That is the Hoonanea condominium complex, and they are making good progress. Let's jump over there real quick to take a closer look at Hoonanea. Okay, as we come to the end of the tour here, let me know in the comment section what you think of the progress now that you've seen it for yourself. To me personally, it looks like we're making some really good progress in the residential rebuilding, and hopefully the pace of construction will only increase from here. However, I am disappointed that the commercial area on Front Street has seen very little progress as far as rebuilding the businesses that will support the town. Don't forget to share the video with anyone you know who wants to stay informed on Lahaina's recovery progress. Thanks so much for watching all the way to the end. I hope to see you on the next video. Aloha.